What is up, guys? Welcome to Rick Renegade's Metal Collection, and this is Shuffle of Death, I believe, episode 8. This one's kind of an interesting one. A lot of stuff that I haven't really heard in a while, and stuff I've really not listened to much, actually. Maybe even an album or two that I kind of forgot I even had. So this will be interesting. So I had to give some extra attention to some of these albums to make sure I had an opinion to give you. But the first thing that my phone chose for me, which is a good one, Yngwie Malmsteen's Marching Out. This came out in 85. It gets an 87% on Metal Archives, which personally I would give it more of like somewhere between a 93, 95, because I actually think this is a really good, solid album. And this is the second album under the Yngwie Malmsteen's Rising Force banner. And I'm going to be honest, everything on here is really good. I remember when I first got this, I just thought it was okay. Like, just another 80s power metal album. And the more I listened to it, I'm like, dude, this is really masterful stuff. I love this album. Like, it's every track I pretty well like and or love. Of course, it's got some neoclassical stuff in it. His first album was always kind of my favorite. I think it still is, because it's a lot of like Yngwie just going nuts on a lot of instrumentals, and it's just really a creative album. But this one's more of a traditional, straight up, traditional songwriting, verse, chorus, verse type stuff, and it rules. It really does. So I think I don't have everything Yngwie's done. Like, I'm not like a mega fan of his music, but I do really like certain things that he's done. And the first two albums are definitely two that I love. So definitely check it out. It's not just a bunch of showing off or anything. Like, these are actually really good songs. So definitely, yeah. Next, Razor Maid. Let's see here. CDs are kind of out of order from how I want to talk about them. Okay. Razor Maid. This one is an oddity, and one that I'll be honest, I've barely listened to. Like the Yngwie, I've listened to that one a lot. This one's kind of one that I keep forgetting I even own. But this came out in 87. No reviews on Metal Archives, though. Actually, no, I'll take that back. I don't even think this is on Metal Archives. I don't think it considers it metal. And this is the only album that they've ever done. Okay, so why isn't it on Metal Archives? Well, it's kind of a glam metal album, which I'm not a huge fan of glam metal altogether. Like, I like some glam metal for sure, usually ones that are on the heavier side. But yeah, I do like some. But this is actually really, really good, though. I put it in, and not really put it in, but my phone played it, and I was surprised. This is actually on the better side of the spectrum for glam metal. It's not like super heavy, but it's not real lame. It's actually some good songs with some good guitar work, some good vocals. Actually, a pretty dang solid production. To me, it's like, I don't know, like a band that I think is kind of middle of the road is like Rat. Picture like something like a mixture of like Rat and Dokken, but maybe even better. I don't know, like maybe better. It's pretty solid. I like it. A lot of like the guitar work is really, really good, and it's something funny about this. I have to tell a story. This has a guy by the name of Kurt Mitchell, and this is just so funny because me and my friend Dave both had these VHS cassette tapes of Kurt Mitchell teaching guitar riffs and stuff like that. I had a Metallica one. He had a Nirvana one. And, they were just awful. Nothing against Kurt Mitchell. He's a good he's a good guitarist. I think, actually, isn't he credited as playing bass on this or something? I could have swore that's what I seen on Metal Archives. But I don't know. Anyway, yeah, and I remember I was so excited because I just started playing guitar, and I got this Metallica tape, and then I take it home, and it's just a bunch of like load and reload riffs. I was so disappointed. That was pretty much a wasted purchase from my parents. and his Nirvana one, I guess he played some stuff kind of weird, like told him to tune down the guitar and play it up a half step or something weird. Maybe it was a copyright thing. I don't know. I have no idea. But anyway, yeah, Kurt Mitchell. Yeah, the music's better than his VHS tapes, I say. But definitely check it out. Definitely check it out. It's good stuff. Bullet. Okay, so there's a few bands out there by the name of Bullet. There's a newer one that kind of, well, since like the 2000s, like early 2000s, I guess they've been around. I don't know. And I think they're Swedish, and they play kind of like a, sort of like an AC/DC meets Accept meets Crocus type of metal. But this is not that Bullet. No, this Bullet, I believe, I might be wrong, but I think they're from Germany. I think. Don't quote me on that, but this came out in 1983. No reviews on Metal Archives on this one, and this is their second album, and I believe they only did 2. I'm going to be honest. I got this thinking, oh, cool, another 80s metal classic out there probably that's obscure, and it starts off pretty good. Sounds like some typical 80s heavy metal, and then it kind of goes into like, it's kind of a mixture between like heavy metal and hard rock at times. There's a truck coming by. Hopefully I don't block out my sound. FedEx. Hope you're bringing me some CDs. Anyway, so it's kind of like a heavy metal meets hard rock sort of thing, and I don't know what it is. I've never really like been super into this album like I wanted to be. It's not bad, but some of the choruses just don't do it for me. I don't know what it is. It's nothing really wrong with the music. I just don't go nuts over it, and personally, I just don't have a whole lot to say about it because of that. And it's just one of those albums where I've stuck in to listen to like once a year and just kind of like listen to like 3 tracks and just kind of gave up on it. I don't know. I'm not saying it's bad. It just never interested me like that much. And I don't know. Maybe I need to give it some more listens. Maybe I'll regret saying that, but it's okay. You might like this though. You might like it. So don't listen to me entirely. Next, I've been kind of wondering when it was going to pick something from this band. Skyclad. Oh boy, do I got some stories on Skyclad here. So this is their third album, came out in 93, and it gets a 75% on Metal Archives, which I think is kind of a fair rating. Okay. So me and Skyclad, I remember back way in the early 2000s when I had dial-up internet and I was looking for new bands. I remember it just kept recommending Skyclad on some CD website. I don't even remember the website anymore. It's probably not even around anymore. But they kept recommending Skyclad, and I never really checked them out. So I never really knew what they were. And years go by, and I do mean years, like a decade goes by. I never really heard another person, metalheads, nobody, talk about Skyclad. So it was just a name that just got buried deep into my brain and almost forgotten about. So one day, probably around 2014, 15, I don't even know, but I was just sitting at home and I started thinking about Skyclad. Like, whatever happened to that? And what are they? Why did they keep being recommended? So I finally checked them out, and I was actually pleasantly surprised. It's really good folk metal. So they had, and they're credited as being the like the first folk metal band, I think, or one of. But actually, there's one from the late 70s, believe it or not, a band called New, aka Wildebeest from Spain. But that's another story. I've already done a video on it myself, actually. So so we got like violins, we got like mandolins, just interesting stuff. And funny enough, it's got the singer, at least the old albums did. There's a couple later that didn't, but the old albums had Martin, Walkier, whatever his name is. I never knew how to say his name, but he was actually in Sabbath, a thrash metal band from the UK, actually, and then he started this band, I guess, with some members of Satan, of all things, Satan, uh, the new wave of British heavy metal band. So kind of that's just a weird connection there. Um, but their first couple albums started out like a little more on the speed thrash side. Now it's been a long time since I've listened to these, and I'll have to explain that. So I went nuts. I ordered like every Skyclad album when I kind of really discovered them, and I went nuts. I was in love with this band. Listened to them constantly. I've got everything they've done except for that album they did in 2017. And then all of a sudden, I just stopped listening to them. About around the time the 2017 album came out, I started like dwindling down and not listening to them anymore. Almost like cold turkey, just quit Skyclad. I don't even know why 100%, because I never really disliked their music or anything. Maybe I was a little. I think it was a mixture of burnout and just kind of. Okay, I'm gonna have to say something. There's something about heavy metal bands that do like this environmental stuff in their music, and that bores me, man. It just bores me. Like Annihilator did a couple of songs like that, and Testament did like Greenhouse Effect. There's just something about environmental awareness music that just just bores me, man. Like, go blow something up. I want to hear warriors stabbing each other with swords and stuff like that. I don't know. I think I just all of a sudden just kind of got a burnout, and I just didn't come back. And I don't know. Maybe I'll start listening to them again, because I did get kind of. I was pretty surprised when it picked this one, and I was like, yeah, it's still good stuff. But anyway, I think this album is like their first one, if I can remember right. It's kind of their first one where they started going straight headfirst into folk. Because I think the first two were a little more speed thrash oriented. Don't quote me on that, but if I remember right, yeah. This is kind of like a good warm up of what's to come. The albums after, like the next 3 or 4 or whatever, are like, to me, the golden era of Skyclad. So, but this is still good. I just think it's a precursor to even better things. And this album's called Jonah's Ark. Gosh, I'm not even giving you like album titles. But yeah, it's good. I recommend it. But Skyclad is a very good band. Do check them out. I'll probably start listening to them again because they're interesting. But that's really all I got to say about that. I just kind of had a weird relationship with Skyclad in my life. So, last and certainly not least, this one is probably the most obscure one in this batch of CDs, and it's a band called Renegade. Okay, one of these albums that I've just not really listened to much since I got it at all. I just forget it even exists. And okay, let me give you some info. So this particular disc has 2 albums on it, and I'm going to be going over the first album, just titled Renegade. I'll just start with that one, and if it ever picks Renegade again, I'll start talking about the second album. But I remember when I first got it, and I think the way I got it, if I remember right, I had some CDs of my own band that I had made, and then I did a trade with Sentinel Steel Records. The guy that runs that, I think I traded some of my CDs for some of his used CDs or something, or some of his clearance CDs. And I think that's how I got this. And I remember where I first listened to it, and I was like, yeah, it's pretty good. It's pretty typical, but it's pretty good. I'll listen to it later. Barely ever listened to it again. But when it picked it, I was actually surprised how good this actually was. I should have been listening to this CD. So what is it? Okay, so the first album, just titled Renegade, came out in 1986, year I was born. 70% on Metal Archives, which I don't think is fair. I at least give it I'd give it an 85 to 90, somewhere around there, somewhere in between. And that's their first album. So it's really kind of like a power metal, heavy metal sort of thing. A little bit of speed metal in there, but not a lot. It's actually really, really good. The production's not bad. It's not one of the greatest productions in the world, but it's actually not bad. I kind of remember there being some pretty cool riffs and actually some memorable choruses, and I guess there's some a little bit of fantasy lyrics in there and stuff like that. Some of the solos and leads were actually interesting. It was one of the things that was actually catching my attention. I was like, I don't remember this album being that cool, but it kind of was. I mean, it's not anything that's going to knock your socks off with originality, but it's definitely a good listen. So, I mean, I wouldn't put this on the list of greatest heavy metal albums of all time, but don't forget about it, and like I did, actually give it a shot and listen to it. It's pretty good, and I'll have to listen to the second album sometime. Maybe it'll pick it again or something. We'll talk about it, but yeah. So Renegade. So Rick Renegade, meet Renegade. So pretty cool stuff. But that's it. It was a little longer video, a little longer winded because I'd like telling little stories here and there about my relationship with a band or a musician or whatever. But yeah, that was a fun one. Like the most notable one here, if I had to pick a favorite, I mean, it would easily be Yngwie. That's really the only one here that I actually have like listened to a lot. Skyclad I have, but it's been a long, long time. But anyway, if you like this video, like, subscribe. Till next time, see ya.